steering wheel. Somebody tell him to give it to me.
There's something loose between my legs.
I don't know. Let go!
I'm heavier than a freaking boat.
Nothing you can say can make that any better.
Yeah, nobody. No more radio for the rest of the race.
I'm going home. You.
Hello and welcome to DRS FC, an F1 podcast by soccer nerds. After what felt like a second summer break, fall break, whatever, we finally have a race to preview and we're going to do it. F1 is heading stateside to Austin, Texas for a race at the Circuit of the Americas, which is short name for that, COTA. To help me preview this race, I've got Eboni. Hello, Eboni. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. And I got Donald here. Donald, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Ready to talk about Austin.
Let's do that. Let's just dive right in because Austin's actually a really cool track. I like this race overall, and I'm really excited for this. Obviously, I'm just excited because finally, after a long break, we had a couple races, then we had another break, and that just felt ridiculous. So we've got actual racing again on the track. So Donald, I want to start with you because you know a few things about the track specifically at COTA. It's a really fun track. I particularly like the S's. What stands out about it to you?
First of all, DRS is back, baby. And you get two main zones. This is what we're here for. And also between turns 11 and 12, you have just a ginormous straightaway where aerodynamics actually comes into play. This is one of those races that is the most well-rounded. You have to have a very sound driver, car, the technology has to be sound. The strategy has to be sound. And again, if you use too much downforce in that long straightaway, you can get caught. And so I think it makes for a lot of racing. There's a lot of chances to overtake, which obviously a lot of fans love, but also it gives you a chance to see these drivers be drivers and be the best in the world. So I'm really excited about that. I think also, you think about it, there's like a pseudo long straightaway to start the race. And then you lead into turn one, which is one of the cool turn ones in the whole circuit. You'll see a lot
uphill. It's nice.
It's uphill, and you'll get to see a lot of guys force their opponents into a wide turn to try and overtake them on that really hairpin turn. Yeah. But turn 12, I think, is great because after that long straightaway, you see a lot of guys figuring out how they can get past the guy, and you'll see a lot of racing into that corner, which I think is great. So, yeah, this is, again, a race where I think you have to be super well-rounded as a team to survive, and each driver has to really bring it at certain elements of this track, but it's something for everybody here at Austin.
Yeah. And Eboni, we were talking before we started recording about, the U.S. has 3 races now. One's Miami. That's already done. Vegas coming later, but Austin is now. And Austin, honestly, given what we know about this country and Miami and Vegas, Austin is like the most affordable option if you do want to go and see a race. And I think it's a better track.
It is. I think it's so much better than Miami and Vegas just because of how this was built for this specific race and how with the Vegas and Miami tracks, they had to like form around the busyness of those cities, and it doesn't make for a fun race. You can't see a lot. If you're in a spot, you're there until a car passes you. With this one, you can see so much more, and it's affordable. Out of the 3 tracks, it's looking up right before we started recording, it was $249 to just get in the door for Sunday for the race. $249 is what you're looking at to go to practice 1 at Miami. That's not even a full racing.
That's a low number.
Right.
If you're at $249 in Miami, you did well.
Right.
You might want to add a 0 to that.
It's not the cheapest North America race. Let's make sure that that's clear. There's still 2 races in Canada and you got Mexico, but this is by far the cheapest USA race, and it's a really good introduction to F1 if you're just getting into it for the first time. It just looks like a fun track. There's so many turns where a lot of things can happen. Stroll can fuck up somebody's day anywhere along zone 1. So, and then you get to zone 2, and it's now who has the fastest car? Because that's where you're going to get all the speed, and everyone's just going to go. So that's why this is one of my favorite tracks, a part of the circuit.
Yeah. And you mentioned the hill is a good viewing experience. If you're going, or if you ever do go, the hill, apparently you can see the entire thing which is like kind of blows my mind for a track that long and with that many twists and turns.
Yeah. So a friend of mine went and he said he had the blast because you could just like go and see so much and do so much that like, because part of it is on a hill, you see more of the track. So you're not just sitting there waiting around for 5 minutes for someone to drive past you again. So yeah, it's a really cool track.
So I also want to mention, because as Donald and I, we were talking about it a little bit in a group chat, and you dropped a photo in there that I feel like you want to talk about, because I loved it as well. It's one of those great moments. So do you want to tell the people, one, how to find the photo, but also what it was and why it was important and why it was actually just extremely funny?
Look, first of all, when everyone wins a race, or gets in the podium, Pirelli, who is basically the sponsor of everything in F1, they have hats for first place, second place, and third place. And usually it's just some generic run-of-the-mill trucker hat that they get to put on. Sometimes it has some nice little colors depending on the race. I know Italy has like the red, white, and green on there. But for Austin, it's a 10-gallon hat. You take it straight to the streets of Austin with this. And there is a picture of the 2012 race, which is the inaugural race won by Lewis Hamilton. Ironically, his last race that he won for McLaren before he switched to Mercedes. It's him popping champagne in a Pirelli 10-gallon hat. And let me tell you, I don't know if you've ever wanted a 10-gallon hat in your life. I don't know if you've wanted a Pirelli hat in your life, but you will want both after you see this photo. It's online, very readily available. If you look up Lewis Hamilton 2012 Austin, absolutely, there it is. Absolute fire. But let me tell you, if you don't look at that and decide that you yourself want to become an F1 driver so you yourself can have that moment, I don't know what to tell you, because that is what living is, folks. Right there.
The yeehaw agenda. The yeehaw agenda.
The yeehaw agenda is live. I do want to throw a disclaimer out there, because Lewis is a really fashion forward person. So you may not be able to pull it off as well as he did, but at least you can feel like the vibe.
No. There's no way.
Halloween, you don't pull off you're not supposed to pull it off exactly like the person. You're just supposed to make everyone go, you look like Lewis Hamilton. That's all you need to do. Right. That's all I'm looking for.
Fair enough. I will say, and we'll get into now talking about the race and our expectations, but I feel like we have to spare a moment for this particular race, especially Red Bull just been messing a bunch of things up this entire season. Well, not the entire season, but midway, at least the midway point. Booting out Daniel Ricciardo before the Austin race, when he is like the most non-American man maybe in history, certainly in F1, but maybe in all of history. This is like his race. He almost feels like right at home in Austin. I don't know why it's weird, but his personality was such a good fit for this particular track, this particular race, this particular location. It's just really sad that he's going to miss it, like this race. Like, we already had Danny Rick at Austin for the last time. Thanks, Red Bull. We didn't even know it.
Which is hilarious, though. Like, we have an American driver.
We had.
We have
an American team, right? This is Haas's home track. This is the one that Haas always wants to win every year, and they don't. So, but yeah, I think the one thing about Daniel Ricciardo is, like, he also, not only was this like a track that fit his style, he loved racing at Austin. If you remember last year, he broke his hand, and Liam Lawson, who we will talk about driving for Daniel Ricciardo later on, drove for him for 5 races, and he came back for Austin. He came back with the cowboy boots and the 10-gallon hat, and he was ready to go. So someone's going to have to replace that for this to still have the same kind of, mantra and the aura that it has had in years past.
Is Haas really an American team if they're out here spelling color with a U?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was just about to say, they said they're American and they had their whole livery. They painted the stars and stripes on the car. They had it as like, our country was like the tweet. And then they said colors, COLOUR. Excuse me?
That's how that works.
This is like when Brad Friedel played in the EPL for like 20 years and came back with an English accent. He's still American, but he had to relearn that. So Haas needs to get back on it. Like, we're back home. You got 3 of the next 4 races, or 2 of the next 4 races are going to be in America. You got to get that U up out of there. Like, we don't need that for the next month.
Yeah, drop the U. It's not that difficult.
We put T in the harbor for a reason. Drop the U.
Exactly.
And just a quick note before we get really into the racing and what we expect to see. This is also a sprint race. Haven't had one of those in a little while. So you will have one practice session. Then you have sprint qualifying. And you have the sprint race. Then just a few hours after the sprint race on Saturday, you're going to have qualifying for the Grand Prix. And then Sunday, you get the race. So a very intense, without a lot of practice time. Normally you get 3 practice sessions. You only get one when there's a sprint weekend. So this is going to be a little bit chaotic. So let's go ahead and talk about it, because I think top line, the big thing is, are we going to have an actual race for the Drivers' Championship? That really depends a lot on this race. Like, is Lando Norris going to pick up enough points to put significant pressure on Max Verstappen? They can't finish 1-2 anymore. Somebody smarter than me did the math and said that Lando needs to pick up an average gap on Max of 8.5 points per weekend, which means if he's finishing first and Max is finishing second, that ain't going to cut it. So you need some gap. Oscar, where you at? Like, we're going to need to find out, are we really having a Drivers' Championship battle? Ebony, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen regarding the title race, maybe?
I think you find out who the real racers are. I don't know if Lando has it in him to challenge Max this year. I think he sets himself up to understand what he needs to improve on with this race in terms of being a true competitor and racing, and like racing for a title. Like, he's been racing sort of, but I don't think he's really pushed as hard as he could, especially after that whole let Oscar finish first thing. I think they understand, like, if they don't win this one, or if Max doesn't drop points, they're done and it's essentially over. But I don't think he has the pedigree to do it yet. It's going to be a fun race. I think we're going to see Oscar actually prove that he should be number 1 with this race. And because I don't think he finishes above Lando, but I think he does enough driving tactics to show that he can do it. But the team's going to put in Lando first. So
yeah, because mathematically, they probably should have been doing this a while ago.
Yeah.
I don't think they understood how close it was or predicted Red Bull's struggles. But looking back, it's almost like, yeah, y'all really kind of dropped the ball. He should be much closer. Right now, the current gap is 52 points, and he should be a little bit closer than that. He did win the previous race, Singapore, by 20 seconds? Could have been more. He almost also crashed a couple times. So he does need to tighten it up a little bit. Donald, what do you think? You think we're going to get that gap closing and get a real Drivers' Championship race?
I think in the case of Lando Norris, yes, it's possible, but this is the absolute wrong race for that to start for them. That should have started, as you mentioned, a few weeks ago, because Verstappen's won the last 3 here at COTA. I believe he's won the last 3 sprint races. I know he won last year. I have to double check on 21 and 22, but he just for some reason has figured out a way to put it together here in the United States. And I think when it comes to Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, yeah, they should have figured out that Lando had the better chance to catch him early on. And maybe this, 3-week break that we've had is where they can get that strategy together. Because as I mentioned, strategy is super important in Austin to get the win, because it has to be a well-rounded race. You have to figure out when you use your DRS, when you exercise some of your battery issues, because battery can be a thing. Austin can be hot. I don't know if it's going to be hot next weekend, but it can be in the 90s. And so that makes it a little bit faster of a track, especially on those downhill straights. And you have to be able to navigate all that. And you have 2 guys who are going for the championship that are also teammates and have to figure out when to box the other people out. And that is the one thing that McLaren has not yet been able to do. They've been going at it kind of like Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton did in the early days of Mercedes. They're just letting them go at it and figuring out who is the better driver. This is not a better driver situation. This is a better team situation. And for them to get what they need to do, they need to understand that Lando for now needs to be the number 1. Piastri for now needs to be the number 2. And yeah, sure, if it becomes mathematically impossible to catch Max, then sure, you let him go Rubbins racing for the last few weeks. But for now, that has to be the approach for McLaren.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that's been a little frustrating to me about this. I like Oscar. I like how aggressive he is on track. He's made some really great overtakes. I do think his overtake, was it at Monza, Lando on lap 1? I do think that was a bit overblown, because Lando was you don't expect your teammate to do that to you in that situation. Like Lando is just kind of like, all right, good. I'm in the lead. I'm in control. I got my teammate helping me. Okay, there he goes. So that was a problem.
Be your own people sometimes.
I know, right? And that's the root of my beef with Oscar right now is like, we get it, dude. Like, you're good. We got you. Like, you've grown in the sport. You're really good. You've won a race already. Like, we know you're really good. Right now, it ain't about you right now. This is team like anybody but Max when it comes to the Drivers' Championship. And the person that's closest is your teammate. So right now, it's almost like Oscar's either taking points away from Lando or he's not in the way to like push Max down. I'm like, we need McLaren 1-2. If we're going to pull this off, McLaren 1-2, Norris 1. That's how it has to be.
They made that distinction too late. So Oscar is a competitor and he's like, I want to win. But he's not thinking, I want the team to win. I think they waited too long to tell him that. So after that day where Lando had to be begged to let him by, I think that switch hit with him. And that's when the team aspect went away. So now they don't have enough time to bring it back for the season. That's why I don't think Lando's really going to do anything here. I think Oscar does a lot, but it doesn't help anybody but himself, which can be good, especially if you're not planning to stay, if they don't make you number one. But other than that.
Whoa, it could get spicy. Get real spicy in McLaren.
And think about this, right? Like, as a team, McLaren has the better car right now. That's been apparent for the last, 3 months?
Oh, yeah.
They've had the better car. Red Bull has been struggling. Verstappen has been struggling. He hasn't won in quite a while, which by his standards is unacceptable. And Checo has just been kind of, middling around in 8th and 9th, right? So he's not a factor in helping Max fend off McLaren and Mercedes every single week. But also, Red Bull has had their issues too. Like, not just with Danny Rick and Liam Lawson, but also Verstappen's car just has been failing him. And, since we're haters, Max has been failing his car at several points too. And again, he doesn't have a teammate that's built to help him out with that. So have they gotten that together? Again, this is his race, the sprint races. He's won every single one of them this year. Is someone going to get over the hump and really push him there? Because you just don't want to give him 8 points right before the weekend basically is halfway through. But if McLaren can't get their strategy together, that's exactly what they're going to do. And then, maybe Sunday won't matter because then they'll be, basically have given them, 30 points to work with. And Lando's not going to be in a position to really match that.
Yeah, I think you just outlined like the nightmare scenario for McLaren. You spot Max those 8 points and it can be rough. I mean, obviously you could, Lando could finish second or third or whatever. And it's not an 8-point gap that immediately builds, but it's still like now it increases how much you have to win, but also how much further down the grid Max has to finish. And that's tough. I hate to do the gotta hand it to him situation, but I think we've also seen like Max finishing second at Singapore was kind of impressive. That car was not second. I think there are a couple teams that messed up a little bit, but he drove really well in that. Like, he knew he wasn't going to catch Lando. Once Lando passed him, it was gone. Like, that was it. And then it's just frustrating. Well, he didn't have to pass him. Lando just went flag, like lights to finish, to checkered flag. And so it's a little bit frustrating. So let's focus on Red Bull real quick. You did mention Max in the last Grand Prix that he won was in Spain, Barcelona, June 23rd. It's been a minute.
Yeah.
Since he's won a race. This is also kind of interesting. So the reason why I'm still nervous about that, I still can't get on board fully with there being a Drivers' Championship race, is because Max keeps finishing second, and I don't ever expect Red Bull to stay down very long. Now, this break that we just had is one of those where you could work on the car. In the summer break, you can't. Like, it's a kind of an enforced break. Everybody has time, go spend with your family. That's what you do. This break was not that. This break, you could do a lot in Red Bull. Obviously, what are they going to say? But Red Bull claimed they found the source of their problems ahead of Singapore. And with Max finishing second, it's hard to argue with them. So what do you both expect from Red Bull in this race? Donald, we'll start with you.
I think, again, you mentioned Max being just strong. And again, like, it feels like Max has a broken leg and is still second, right? He could have 3 tires on the car and still finish second. His car's not good enough to overtake people as well as it was earlier in the season, But I think the real issue with Max, again, and I hate to do it because, he's a decent dude, is Checo. Checo being, the run that he has had since he hit the podium in Miami is awful by Red Bull standards and is awful by, just a guy who's at the top of the drivers' championship needs to have a teammate that's in like 4th or 5th. And he is, but the last few races, right? 8th, DNF in Monaco, DNF in Montreal, 8th, 7th, where he finished 8th in the sprint, 17th, 7th. We had a fastest lap, 6th, 8th, 17th, and 10th. So he's barely even getting points. And that was, if you think about the first few weeks of the season, it was basically Verstappen 1, Checo 2, most of those weeks, or at least he was hitting the podium. He was getting extra points to build up this lead that has basically been eliminated and then overtaken in droves by McLaren because Checo is just not living up to his end. Now, I think this is a race, again, that Verstappen, it seems to be built for. If Lewis Hamilton has not won this race, Max has, essentially, for the last decade. So I'm looking to see if Verstappen kind of just overcomes that. But again, in those previous years, he had a strong Checo that was right next to him, essentially pushing him to a point and then being that guy who could fend off everybody who was coming his way so that, Red Bull got as many points as possible. This may not be that this time around. Verstappen could very well win this race, but he'll have to work hard to do it because Mercedes is faster and McLaren is absolutely faster than their car right now.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, when Max was winning those past couple years, he also had clearly the better car. And as you mentioned, he doesn't have the better, at least that we know of. Who knows what happened within these 3 weeks? So we're going to find out. Ebony, what do you think?
You mentioned it, like they definitely worked on the car. It's just a matter of did they work on both cars? Because they've already said that they don't really work on Checo's cars unless Max is complaining. So if they've done that, then I think Checo has no choice but to be better because you can't be that bad in a really good car. We're seeing it now with Ferrari. Like, you can't be bad in a good car. I mean, Lance Stroll can do it because his dad owns it, but that's about it. So I do think Max takes this one, which is why I feel like this race is over. But I don't think they impress like we hope they do. We just go, oh, they added more parts and now they're fast again. But I don't see Max driving any better than he has in the last couple of weeks. I just see him going zoom faster.
He just, again, I think he also sees the number of points and he just has to, basically like in baseball, you have the magic number. He just has to whittle that magic number down as much as he possibly can. And to do that, if he finishes on the podium, he's, getting almost as many points as possible. The thing about it is he's focused on the drivers' championship. Red Bull is focused on the drivers' championship. What they're really not focused on right now is the constructors' championship. And to do that, you need a strong Checo involved. You need him finishing 4th, on the podium, obviously, but like if not 4th or 5th, as opposed to 8th, 9th, or in some of these cases where he's barely finishing the race.
Yeah, I think that's a great point and actually brings us to the Constructors' Championship talk because we might not have a Drivers' Championship race and we're kind of expecting to see, like, I'm up in the air. I don't really know what to expect. I hope we get a significant gap between Lando and Max. Then to me, it's really on. But until we see that happen, it's hard to say for sure. But Constructors is definitely it. And Ebony, you mentioned it. Red Bull got themselves in this situation because it's wild that they admitted this. I think it was Christian Horner who was just like,
you couldn't waterboard that information out of me. Like,
right. Oh. He was just like, oh, Checo was complaining, but we didn't really care because Max was winning races. I'm like, yo, that's wild. That's wild negligence.
That's at least something that you come out like the next day and you go, kidding. Yeah, you've been punked. There's cameras everywhere. It's sorry, just joking. He didn't do that. He came out and doubled down.
I know, right? You're supposed to be like, oh, that was just for Drive to Survive. I'm just hype. I'm just building it up, y'all. It's fine.
It's a trailer. It's a trailer.
Yeah,
we
exactly.
were the trailer yesterday.
But apparently that's what happened with Red Bull, and that's wild. So as a result of a lot of that, they are no longer in the lead for the Constructors' Championship. As we said on a previous episode, this is the one that gives the teams all the money. This is where the teams really care about. The drivers get the prestige, get the celebrations, get the money, get the endorsements, get the sponsorships, all that. But for the teams, that boatload of money that F1 just rolls up to your crib at, it's the Constructors' Championship. This is what you really want to win. And McLaren is in the lead right now. They have 516 points. Red Bull, second place, 475 points. Ferrari, right behind them, 441 points. And that's because, again, McLaren, 2 strong drivers. Ferrari, 2 strong drivers. Red Bull, they just kind of let Checo wail around out there. We're like, Max will win. It'll be fine. And then that stopped happening. And this is what happened. So I kind of want to, we've already talked about Red Bull a little bit and Checo struggling as a result of his car really not being worked on. Fred Vassar, the Ferrari team principal, he said they're bringing an update to the car for Austin and that really it will probably be their last one of the season. We know Charles Leclerc is what I've been told to say. It's Leclerc. I thought it was Leclerc. It sounds much fancier, Leclerc. And I'm like, if you're born in Monaco, it probably should be Leclerc, but it's Leclerc.
Is it really Leclerc? Because they've definitely been doing Charles Leclerc, the whole C. Like, there's no S in his name. There's no C in a second C in his name. The whole year.
Yeah, it's why I actually listened to when I kept hearing people say it, I was like, all right. And then I listened and someone said, I wish I could cite them, but they said that he said specifically, don't forget to pronounce the second C in my name. That's how you pronounce it. And I listened to him say his own name and he says Leclerc. So it's Leclerc. Anyway.
I'm calling Leclerc. We'll call him Leclerc.
Exactly. If you want to be called Leclerc, fine. You're Leclerc. Leclerc, I'd roll with Leclerc. I think it sounds so much better. But hey,
it sounds like Eclair, and that's delicious. Yeah, so why would you not want that? I don't know. Maybe.
That's again another thing that would have been like, I was just joking last night. I was just drinking. Like, don't worry about what I said yesterday. I meant Leclerc. Like,
right,
no,
right.
It's not.
So I think my question to y'all right now is Ferrari. We can't forget about them. They have been very good. Basically, every time they have a race in Italy, they win it. Kind of their thing. But they kind of just wait for their updates to be like, all right, we'll care now. Like, we'll bolt up the car in the very best way possible and we'll go and win this race. But because they've had good finishes, they're really close in the Constructors' Championship. And Red Bull is a serious threat of finishing third in the Constructors' Championship, which kind of would have been unheard of when Max was doing a lot of winning earlier this year. So, Eboni, your thoughts on Ferrari and if they can actually jump Red Bull?
I think they can, only because I see both drivers continuing to do well with this car. And I think they're showing Lewis what potential they have with this car with just a few modifications in the offseason. So I feel like this car is going to be a lot faster and durable, if that's even possible with all the mechanics that go behind it. But
you've just said Ferrari and durable in the same sentence.
I know. They're turning over a new leaf. They said new brake, new me. Okay. and I think that they absolutely will jump Red Bull. I don't know how big of a gap it'll be by the end of the year, but I do think they finish second. I just think that they're trying to prove to Lewis that they can do it and that their biggest threat next year won't be Red Bull, it'll be McLaren. That's how I think everybody's stacking up right now is we're no longer scared of Red Bull. We need to match up to McLaren. So I'm excited for Ferrari. I'm going to take over from Meg and the Ferrari love for this week. And I'm excited for them. I think they podium.
Well, you know what? I think that's a good shout because if you think about last year, right? Last year in the sprint race, Leclerc got third. He got the pole and ended up being DQ'd along with Lewis Hamilton, which was a wild race last year. And then Carlos Sainz got third. And so we hit the podium. So Ferrari as a whole, you think about the number of points that they took on the weekend. They walked out there despite the DQ with quite a few points. And I'm sure, and the funny thing is, like, you think about like a bye week in soccer, right? Like you think about, I get to focus on the next opponent, right? And you get 2 weeks to prepare for the next opponent, maybe get some rest, retool some things, do some practice in, and then you get to focus on the next race. I wonder if this 3-week break, they were focusing and putting all of their, nuts and bolts into Austin because as, they've done so well there recently. If you think about the last few races, these are races that they've done pretty well and they may not have won all of them, but they've podium in a lot of them. And I think, I think their goal is to get both drivers on the podium because if they do, that really, again, it kind of in a way helps McLaren. McLaren can say, goodbye to Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship, but then it becomes a race for second. And Ferrari absolutely wants to finish above Red Bull and kind of knock them down a little bit more and put the pressure on them. And even, again, on Mercedes as well, because the two teams that in the way had the most money and had the most prestige, if they finish third and fourth, that can be considered nothing less than a dismal year, despite the fact that Max Verstappen could still be winning the Drivers' Championship in the process.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, actually. I think quick math, never should do math live, but 34 points, I believe, is the gap between Ferrari and Red Bull right now. And that's pretty doable, especially with a sprint race. There's a lot of points up for grabs. You could come out of this weekend, especially if Checo continues to struggle, especially if Max struggles like he did, except for Singapore, bar the Singapore race where he finished second. If he's struggling and angry and pissed off and staying up all night doing sim racing and screaming on the radio, maybe he does something silly like runs up on Lewis Hamilton and pops a tire or something like that. Maybe he just does something silly and ends up finishing off the podium. Then you have a pretty substantial gap in points if Leclerc and Sainz can both get pretty good points throughout this weekend. So the last thing I want to talk about before we get into like a little bit further down the grid, and then of course our predictions and anything else we want to look ahead to for Austin, is Mercedes. Mercedes has had kind of a weird year. They started off really weird with their car. Their car was not performing very well. They had these porpoising issues. They had a lot of issues trying to figure out how to get it going, how to resolve it so it wasn't shattering their drivers' backs. Poor Lewis. They had a lot of issues trying to get the car up to speed. And then they had a little run before, like in the middle of the season, where they won 3 out of 4 races. George Russell won in Austria. That was a little bit of a mirage because it was aided by a crash in front of him, but he ended up winning that race.
A win is a win.
Lewis Hamilton, exactly. Can't take it away from him. They got the point. Right. Lewis Hamilton won Silverstone, a home race. That was an incredible moment. And Lewis Hamilton won Spa in Belgium by a DQ. Russell's car was disqualified after the race, so that bumped Hamilton up because, again, it was Mercedes 1-2. So that was great. And then they have kind of fallen off since. They were 5th and 7th at Monza. Not terrible, but not great, especially when you had just been winning races. 3rd and 9th at Baku in Azerbaijan. 4th and 6th in Singapore. So a little bit of improvement, but still not good enough to get on the podium. Ebony, Mercedes, what do you think? Because I haven't heard officially if they're going to be bringing updates to their car, but what do you expect from Mercedes heading into Austin?
I'm hoping that they made updates, but I feel like the other strong teams around them made more or made better ones. So I don't really see them improving in these finishes. I think we get surprised by Aston Martin coming up with them. I know that one's a wild one out there. Not Lance Stroll. Okay, so when I say Aston Martin, I never mean Lance Stroll. So,
3 body blows to Lance Stroll in this episode. I'm here for it.
But I think they were always on that cusp. And I don't know if I think Mercedes overestimated how close they were to Ferrari and Red Bull. And so they didn't think they needed to make any updates. And then everybody else was like, no, you're still middle of the pack with us. And they made their car updates to match Mercedes. So I think they actually might struggle. So I'm a little kind of like, meh, they're not going to do too great. But, this is going to be a pro Hamilton crowd, just like it's going to be a pro Checo crowd. But Checo's not going to do anything. So Hamilton's going to push. I mean, even though it's in Austin, like you're right there at the Mexico border, quote unquote, so he's going to have fans in the stands, but they're just going to be sad. So then they're going to go Hamilton because they're not going to cheer for Max. So I think Hamilton's going to use this weekend to like really thank the Austin crowd and the USA crowd. And he's going to do something, but the team overall is just going to disappoint him. And he's going to walk away feeling like there could have been more done during this break for this car. He'll definitely finish in points. I don't even know if Russell's going to finish in points. Not even going to hold you. Yeah.
Wow. Brutal. I love that you mentioned Lewis Hamilton's shout outs to the crowd. You can almost, every time he gets the mic, you can almost just script what he's going to say. It's great. I love him. But Donald, what do you think from Mercedes?
Mercedes is in this weird position, one that they probably haven't been in a while, in that they are solidly in 4th in the Constructors' Championship, and both racers in the Drivers' Championship are basically mathematically out of it. And unless, Williams and Alpine and Kick Sauber decide they're going to start putting people on the podium between now and the end of the season and pushing out Red Bull. they're not Ferrari. They're not going to catch them. They're 112 points behind Ferrari. So that's a lot of points that they need to make up as a team. And as long as Ferrari's doing well, as long as McLaren's doing well, it doesn't matter if Mercedes puts both drivers on the podium. They're not going to catch them in number of points. But I do think, again, this is Lewis Hamilton's race. It always has been. It always will be, as long as that man is a driver. And I know that he's excited about, kind of what they've done the last couple of months, and the fact that they're able to come off of this little bye week or 3 weeks that they've had and go to Austin where he is king and nobody does this track better than him. So again, it may take a little help from George Russell to maybe push him towards the front. But if he can get a couple of sprint points, if he can get onto that, get into that top three, maybe that first row of the grid when the lights go out, I think that is going to really push him, because after that, he knows all these things. And then the one thing that concerns me about Mercedes is the porpoising that they had early in the season doesn't rear its ugly head again, because this is the track that allows for that, with a lot of the downforces and the uphills and the downhills. That leads to a lot of that happening, or at least exacerbating itself. So if they've fixed that, this is Lewis's race to lose, in my opinion, despite the fact that he may not be the fastest car on the grid. He is the best driver for Circuit of the Americas. And I think that is the difference there. But Mercedes has a lot of work to do to kind of get, figure out what they want to do with the last few races of the season.
André, I have a question for you. Nico has been racing these last couple of races. Do you see him making a statement in Austin?
Yeah, I think he's been making a statement all season, so I don't expect that to really change. I think what's going to be so wild for me about this weekend is the one practice and a sprint race. I think we're going to see so much chaos. I think you're going to also see some teams get their setup completely wrong for the sprint race, but that's going to allow them to fix it and get it better for the Grand Prix. So I think, especially with so many teams bringing, I would assume a lot of teams are going to bring updates to their car. They've had 3 weeks to work on them. It might as well. And I think you could see that. But Nico, he was doing great in qualifying. He's been one of the strongest qualifiers, just getting that Haas up there sometimes. And in Q3, it was like, whoa, what is a Haas doing in Q3? But he's been great. So yeah, I think he's going to continue to be pretty strong this weekend. And it's also just kind of fun. It's just kind of fun to see Nico just pop up there and push somebody out of Q3 who should maybe be in there.
I hate to be mean, not necessarily towards Nico, because I think Nico has been, steadily improving throughout the season. But what is a statement for Haas, right? Like, is it 10th, right? Because this is their home track. This is what they claim to be their home track, because they're the only American constructor in the paddock. And the results are not going to be enough. And I remember, Drive Survive a few years ago when they're like, yeah, we want to really make a statement. We're thinking about maybe getting 8th. And everyone was like, oh yeah, that's a very sound goal to get 8th. And I'm like, this is America. They don't cut it.
You're not first, you're last.
You're not first, you're last. This is straight. This is Ricky Bobby territory. And people at least want to see it. I think people are realistic in that Haas is not expected to win this thing, but they want to see them try. And I don't know if they have the juice to do that. But again,
so who are you paying off to go crash against every other person?
Well,
you have to compete against Red Bull's 4 cars for that. Who do you start with? Do you start with Liam, the rookie, who's in his first race, or do you just go after Max and see if once someone can take him out, then the whole grid says, thank you, now we can have a race.
Okay, but let's not forget, Kevin Magnussen is a Haas driver, and he just is fresh off of a suspension for accruing too many points for dangerous driving. So, if anybody can go, turn their car into a torpedo, maybe it's going to be a fresh Kevin Magnussen with 0 points on his record right now.
Do they have bounty gate here? Because I'm sure if they don't, this is a great place to start.
Yeah, I'm not advocating for that. It would be really unfortunate. But I mean, if you set the bar that high, Donald, I'm like, yeah, then Haas isn't going to make a statement. But I still think that it was some of the cool stuff to me. And I think Drive to Survive has done a pretty decent job of showing some of the drama further down the grid, especially Gunther Steiner becoming Haas's former team principal and becoming a star and releasing a book all of a sudden. But it is important to see a Haas in Q3. Like, that's really cool. That to me is good. A good finish, like top 12 finish or something, top 13 finish. That's good for Haas and where they're going, and they're steadily building up. Are they going to be one of the top teams? No, they straight up don't have the funding of Red Bull or Ferrari or McLaren, or Mercedes like that. And that's 8 cars right there. So that's going to be really difficult to crack into. But I think putting it on a scale, and I get it, not first or last, this is what we do. But still, on the scale of like best of the rest, it would be kind of interesting to see if Haas could do that, especially if they end up beating like Aston Martin, who have a ton of money and are kind of mid-table anyway. So obviously that's probably going to change now that Adrian Newey is going there. But still, I think Haas getting into those battles and winning some of them is a victory for me. And that is, to me, something that is attainable. You did bring up a good point with Drive to Survive, because I think what Drive to Survive does best, especially if those of you out there are getting into this, Drive to Survive is great for a lot of reasons, but one of them is it shows you what the bottom of the grid does to be successful, right? They adjust expectations. There's some teams who are like, hey, we're going for it, right? We're going for first place. And then you'll see like the last week of the season, you'll see some team like, hey guys, if both of you place, we could get 6th. And we really want 6th because 6 comes with extra millions of dollars. And you'll see them celebrate finishing 6th. I think in this case, maybe success for Haas is placing both in the points, because not only is that a successful showing for them, it also opens up the race a little bit more up top, because that means 2 of the top 5 teams don't have drivers in the top 10. So they're losing points to their competitors. And again, they all hate that. And I think their role may be the spoiler here. Whether it's fastest lap, whether it's in the sprint race, maybe collecting a few points there, or in the actual Grand Prix, just pushing somebody out of the top 10 and out of those points may be what their role is. And maybe that's part of success, is getting, both of those guys into the top 10 and making it where you can say Haas is in the points for their home race.
So is Kevin Magnussen getting points in Austin?
Are we talking about penalty points? Maybe I might put money on penalty points over like actual like drivers' championship points, but maybe
I was
a record for inquiries.
I mean, we did see in Azerbaijan, Ollie Behrman came in because that's the race that Magnussen was suspended for, and he got 10th, so he did get a point for Haas, and so it is not unreasonable to think that they could do something like that. And it would just be kind of cool to see. I don't know if they can get both drivers, but if you're kind of looking at it as well, looks like Kevin Magnussen got 10th as well at Monza. So there are some times when they can sneak in and get that 10th spot, sneak a point. But yeah, I think it would be great to see. I would like to see Nico be able to take his qualifying form and translate it into the actual like race pace, so he can start picking up points or getting closer to points along with Kevin Magnussen, because it looks like he's done a few, but still.
It's also kind of hard though, because you watched him qualify and you're like, oh, this is a top 6 car. And then he gets into a pit stop and it's like, he stopped for 12 seconds.
Yeah, that's fair. Some of it's not all on him, because there are some issues in Haas. Again, a growing team, we will say. A growing team.
That's a nice way of saying that.
There you go. A positive spin on Haas. As long as they drop the U, and next time they spell color or favor or anything else like that, favorite.
Maybe they're waiting to get here to the United States and they drop the U at customs, right? They like go through global entry and all of a sudden the U disappears. And the tweet
assume they afford global entry.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about a couple new drivers, because as we mentioned, Daniel Ricciardo is going to be out, but also we've also got Franco Colapinto, who's raced a couple races already. He's in for Logan Sargent, but he's been quite good as a rookie coming in. I think he had Alex Albon feeling a little bit of pressure when Albon was on the radio. Be like, he dive bombed me. I'm like, homie, he was like on the other side of the track. I don't know what you were talking about, but Franco Colapinto, we've seen. I think it's been cool to see him. It's unfortunate it doesn't seem at this moment that he has a seat in F1 for next season. We'll see what happens. But Donald, Liam Lawson also is the driver that is replacing Daniel Ricciardo in the, as you call it, Visa, Cash App, Venmo, Zelle, PayPal, RB. Really weird name. They did all that. And then I find this funny. They did all that to try to separate themselves from Red Bull. Like, see, we're not just a sister team. Like, everything's fine, even though Red Bull owns them both. And then when it came to this driver change, who was speaking? Christian Horner, Red Bull's team principal. Okay, guys, we see what's happening here. Anyway, Liam Lawson, what are your expectations for him in this race?
What's interesting, it kind of in a way, again, with the reset, with the break, with the 2 new drivers on here, it kind of feels like a early season COTA race as opposed to a late season one, because you got, Liam Lawson, who we saw last year, as I mentioned, he subbed for Danny Rick for 5 races when Danny Rick broke his hand, but he has not done Austin yet. And I think this will be a nice race for him because, again, you get to kind of see, in his case, how good of a driver is he going to be, because you get to combine a lot of different things, how he combines the strategy of Red Bull. And again, Red Bull strategy comes from Christian Horner. It doesn't come from the Visa Cash App money team, of which they have not been money this year. So I think the idea here is Liam Lawson just has to run his race. He doesn't have to worry about, aiming for top 5 or top 10 or anything. If he gets points, I think that's a great debut for him on the season. And I think really that's something that Red Bull will take, is just him getting into the points. But I think it's also going to be a little bit difficult here because of the fact that you got 5 teams really racing here for real big money. And you have him, a new racer, and you have Colapinto, who's also a new racer, both of them looking to impress. There's just not room for all of them in the top 10. So I'm looking for him to do well. If I were to bet on his actual place, I'd say P12, right? This is solid, not in the points, but still a fairly solid debut in my opinion.
Yeah, that feels right. I think that would be like, you'd take that from Liam Lawson, keep the car in one piece, bring it home, Yeah, exactly. Ebony, any kind of trepidation when it comes to Liam Lawson, when it comes to the uniqueness of a sprint race weekend? He's not going to have 3 practice sessions. It's going to be 1, then straight into sprint qualifying, sprint race, then actual Grand Prix qualifying. Like, it's really tough schedule for a rookie driver.
I think I'm only worried about him trying to come in and do too much. Like, I know you want a spot. There's not a lot left out there. There's 2 seats left for the season? Maybe?
Oh, for next year, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I don't want him to come out there and feel like he has to prove it all at once. I feel like like you said, it's going to be tough, especially because you don't get those extra practice rounds that you're accustomed to. I just want him to come in, run, have a solid race. Don't do too much. Don't crash the car. They're tired of paying for new cars. And I think that'll keep you in the hunt for Red Bull 2. And hopefully that'll help lead to a little bit more success for you coming up. But other than that, nothing crazy. Like, P12 is I wouldn't put him higher than that for sure. I was looking at 14th or 15th.
Yeah, could definitely see that too. I mean, that car isn't great, as we know. Obviously, it's had some issues, and Danny Rick struggled with it a bit. And, he had a good spell kind of mid-season, but then it fell off a little bit, and then he gets replaced. So the thing for me about Liam Lawson is going to be just, what kind of pressure is he under? Is he expected to be on this team next season? Or are they kind of giving him a trial to get on the main Red Bull team so he can be Max's teammate next season? If so, then that's a lot of pressure on him in that VCARB car for the last 6 races of the season.
Are they communicating that though?
We're talking Red Bull and junior drivers. Who knows what the hell they're going to do?
And who knows if what they're saying is true, right? We saw that with Danny Ricciardo, where they're like, yeah, you're good, man. You're on the squad. And then they're like, we were just kidding. We got this guy over here. So,
and then the opposite, they said, Checo, I'm sorry. Hey, you're struggling. We're going to have to get you out of there. Then never mind contract extension. So you just never really know with Red Bull and drivers. But in turn, this is why it's going to be fascinating to me to see, like you said, Ebony, is he driving hard? Is he overdriving the car? Is he trying to get himself in that main Red Bull seat? Or did he just say, hey, you're in F1 right now. You're still really young. Get your, figure it all out, get everything under you. And then we'll see how you do throughout next season. And then maybe we can bump you up to that main team, but don't put all the pressure on yourself to basically treat this as an audition for the main team and be Max's teammate. I don't know if they're emotionally intelligent enough, given everything that we've seen from Red Bull this season and their driver management to do something like that. So it will be fascinating to see how Lawson actually drives this weekend.
I also hope he's not putting pressure on himself to be Danny Rick. Like, you're replacing him, like, only in driving.
If he shows up in the 10-gallon hat and cowboy boots, he's lost
right,
the plot.
The charisma, you don't have to be, I mean.
you don't have that charisma.
You can't replace the charisma. Yeah.
Not for you. So I just want him to be Liam driving a Red Bull. I don't want him to be Liam trying to be Danny trying to drive a Red Bull.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Okay, we're almost to the point of predictions. But before I do that, I just want to, we've talked about a lot, but obviously it's a big grid. There's a lot of drivers, a lot of things to pay attention to. So Ebony, is there anything else you're looking for in Austin?
If Meg Thee Stallion is not center stage for at least one song, we've got to redo Austin.
Waving a flag or something, like she got to be part of it somehow.
I need her
counterpoint.
there.
How big a distraction would she be to a lot of the grid? Just saying.
No
See,
comment.
You want a safe race?
See, you trying to get us teared up in a system that doesn't even have tears.
Can't tear in this pod. We run this pod. You can't tear us.
Yeah, not to move on from that, but yes, would love to see. You know what? Here's what I'll say about that. Just like we've talked about with the NWSL, with like soccer in this country, like find the culture. Don't be afraid of it. Like find culture, interact with it. That's how you grow a fan base. That's how you get things to be organic. And it's wild to talk about F1 in this way because there's so much money in the sport. There's also an air of elitism in the sport. So would they, humble themselves to ask Megan Thee Stallion to show up and do something? They've gotten a lot closer to a lot of celebrities in the past and certainly this year as well. So maybe they're trying to promote, and obviously the US is a big market for them too. They're trying to grow here. So just saying, if they want to grow here, if they want the fan bases to grow and they want to get people excited about F1 and following it, you got to do more than a Netflix series. It's been great, but you got to do a bit more. So it will be interesting to see who they bring out.
Red Bull, bring Trinity out. She's hurt, but she's going to connect. Look, man.
Why would you hurt me like that? Why would you? Why would you hurt me like that?
Don't do that.
You're on timeout.
Damn. I'm a mute.
Also, it hurts me that she's with Red Bull. But anyway, Donald, what are you? Anything specific you're looking for that we haven't talked about yet?
Not necessarily looking forward to, but I do want to give some flowers real quick because I know in this pod we're going to be big about giving flowers. We started this just after the Singapore race, and Singapore was a couple of milestones for a couple of drivers. Carlos Sainz, it was his 200th race in F1, which is ridiculous when you think about it, like how long you have to be racing for 200. He's not even in the top 10. But you know who is in the top 10? Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton is number 2 all time. Singapore was his 350th race. So congratulations to both of them. And if you look forward to Austin, Fernando Alonso is number 1 all time. Number of races raced on the grid in F1. Austin will be his 399th race. So inching closer to 400, which is, I think, something that, when Schumacher, I think, reached 250, everyone was like, cool, no one will ever reach that. And now we got like 3 guys who are above 300, and now Alonso closing in on number 400.
All right, it's prediction time. We've talked about the history of COTA in this race. Red Bull, unfortunately, specifically Max Verstappen, won this race in 2023, 2022, and 2021. It was not held in 2020 because of COVID. We all went through that. We understand. Bottas and Kimi Räikkönen won 2019, 2018. And then that Lewis Hamilton run that Donald was talking about is what happened. So between 2012 and 2017, he won them all except one. Sebastian Vettel snuck one in 2013. But apart from that, it was Lewis Hamilton. And then before, there was a break where they didn't hold the race in COTA, 2008 to 2011. 2007, they did run it, and Lewis Hamilton won that one as well. So,
and that was in Indy. So it wasn't even in COTA yet. So that was in Indy. So whenever it's in the United States, it's Lewis's race.
Yes, that is true. So yes, Lewis is kind of a king around there and has been historically great. I believe he has who has the fastest lap? I mean, you looked it up earlier. Do you remember who has the fastest overall lap?
Isn't it Leclerc?
It is still Leclerc.
It might be. It's Leclerc. Okay.
In 2019 with a minute 36.
All right. So, okay. Also, a little bit of a longer lap. So, kind of an interesting race. A lot can happen. Okay. I've stalled enough. You've seen it on the rundown. It's time for our predictions. Here's what we're going to do. Because it's a sprint, we're going to predict the sprint winner. We're also going to predict the Grand Prix winner. And then, as you'll see in these previews and also reviews, we're going to have our Zoomy Boy of the Day. Instead of Driver of the Day, we're doing Zoomy Boy of the Day. That's just so I can say Zoomy Boy of the Day multiple times in an episode. And we're also going to have Gloomy Boy of the Day. Basically, who struggled or who do we think is going to struggle? Doesn't mean who's going to finish last. And Zoomy Boy doesn't mean who's going to be on the podium. Those are different predictions. Just who's going to have a good race overall. So, Ebony, going to you first. Sprint. Who is winning the sprint at Austin? COTA 2024.
Oscar.
Oh, I like it. Donald.
I hate it. But until someone knocks him off, it's Max. He's won every one so far.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going with Lando. I think Lando, I will probably regret this, but I'm going to go ahead and say that McLaren understand what needs to be done. Like they understand the assignment now. And so if they understand it, you have the fastest car. Lando qualifies very well. He's finally gone from first lap to the last lap and won a race in very dramatic and impressive fashion at Singapore. I think their car will also be very good around this circuit. So I'm going with Lando for the sprint win. Okay, Grand Prix, the big race on Sunday. Donald, who you got?
I'm going with Lewis because of his record there. You know, the fact that you mentioned the success he's had there, but since they've done the race, he's won 6 times, 5 at COTA, most of any driver all time. He's only finished off the podium twice. One was last year's DQ, and then you mentioned 2013 when he finished 4th. He hasn't won since 2017, but I feel like he's walking in. Danny Rick's gone. He's got the swagger now, at least when it comes to Austin. He has the swagger in a lot of places, but Danny Rick stole the show in Austin, but now there is one show, and it's the Lewis Hamilton show. He gets it.
Oh, I would love that. Ebony, who you got?
See, I know I've been very hard on McLaren.
Thought you were about to say Lance Stroll. I was like, don't do that.
You do it.
No. And I feel like they just don't have it. But I also feel like Lando is out to prove that he can hang with the big dogs, which is why he's not going to podium. And it's definitely going to be Max.
Wow. The build up and the letdown. Brutal.
Red Bull's going to come out and go fast. And I don't I know McLaren says that they have like the strategy, but I don't think they have the execution because I don't think Oscar gives a shit. So Oscar just wants to go. So I think it's just going to be, they're going to fuck it up and it's just going to be Max.
Yeah, that's the hard thing. It is take some time to learn how to win races, especially when you're expected to win. It is tough. Like there was a little clip before where Lando kind of shot back at Lewis, like you had the best car. And it's like, it ain't that easy, is it, when you have the best car? You know, you try to jab Lewis with that, but like, look at your race performances. You did great at Singapore, but we kind of been waiting for you to do that for multiple races. For me, I'm going with the track holder, the title record holder, Charles Leclerc. I was going to say Leclerc, I'm going with it. I just think that he's like Ferrari. If the updates they bring work, there are 2 really long straights. They love straights at Monza. They were great. He managed the tires really well as well to be strong at the end of that race. Like the final stint of that race, he was exceptional. I think he can do something similar. So I'm going with Leclerc as the race winner. Okay, Ebony, Zoomy Boy of the Day. Who's going to have just a really good day? Doesn't matter about points. We're kind of removing all of all the things of just pointing out who wins the race, just who is going to have a really good weekend relative to expectation.
I'm stuck between 2 drivers, and it's Albon and Nico.
Ooh, okay.
I just think they're just going to run a good race. Like Haas has some pressure, but not a lot because nobody expects a lot from them. So I think Nico just goes and does his thing, and he finishes in the top 10 and gets points. But I just think he just has a really solid race. The team figures it out, and they have like a solid plan, and they execute it 95% of the way there. But also Albon has just been on a slight tear, a small one, like 8%.
A mini tear?
Yeah.
When he's not complaining about Colapinto, he's been doing okay.
He's
Fair enough.
not been bad, but I think I lean more towards Nico.
Okay, sounds good. So going with a Haas. Shout out, drop the U. Donald, who you got? Your Zoomy boy of the day.
So I'm going with Fernando Alonso, and I think it's because he's overdue for a big day. If you think about his history, it's been terrible lately at Austin. He's had to retire his car in 4 of the last 5 years, but he has some success there. He's made a podium in 2013. And I think for some reason, I feel like he's a guy that comes off of a break driving really well and like kind of using that time to really recalibrate and reset and refocus. So I don't know that he wins the thing. Again, I think it's Lewis, but I could see him on the podium at this, just having a really, really good day.
You know what's wild is that's who came to my mind when I was thinking who's going to be my Zoomy boy of the day. My hesitation is Aston Martin. That car has been not good. I think they went in a bad design direction and they've been trying to recover. And obviously, like right now, Adrian Newey can't tell him nothing, at least officially that we know of. But yet he's still on leave and he doesn't start until what I believe is March next year. So he's got quite a while before. And apparently he's not even going to be working on this current iteration of the car or the 2025 car. He's all about 2026 when the regulations change.
So, is he writing stuff on a napkin and like dropping it in the
lunchroom? Exactly.
It blows over to the Aston Martin side, and they just go, "Oh, interesting." Like
that's what I imagine is happening. You know, if all of a sudden Aston Martin is like really threatening for podium positions, we'll be like, okay, I don't know, I know what happened here. So that is tough because I do feel like Alonso is going to do well. You know what? I'm going to do it, even though I said Leclerc is going to win the race. I do think that Norris is going to have a good weekend only because I think he is going to get the points gap to make it look like the Drivers' Championship is on. Now, this also means that Oscar's going to have to help him. So basically finish between him and Max. That's going to be important to make sure that Max picks up the least amount of points possible. But if that happens and throughout the sprint and the Grand Prix, if he gets over that 8.5 points that he needs a weekend, he gets 10 or he gets a gap of 12 or anything higher than that, then it's championship on. And to me, that would make Lando Norris come out of the weekend feeling very, very good. To me, that makes him Zoomy boy of the day or weekend, I guess. Okay, gloomy boy of the day. Who's going to struggle? Who's going to be in their feels, as Meg says? Who's going to have a bad day in Austin 2024? Ebony, who you got?
Who's in their filios? See, you have him as your Zoomy boy. I have him as my gloomy boy.
Oh, yeah. It could go either way.
I feel like he's going to be like, I could have done more. And I'm like, well, you got fourth, but you could have done more. And you could have, I just want to know that him and Oscar have talked it out and Oscar understands that his time will come. But I don't think Orlando's a big enough adult to have that conversation. So they're just going to keep fighting. And so he's just going to be sad as Oscar wins the sprint, but neither one of them get the points needed to help separate to like close the gap for the champion.
Oh, our race review is going to be very interesting. You're either going to be very right or I'm going to be very right. It's going to go one of two ways.
You got to have the opposites. Got to give people something to talk about.
Fair enough. And I'm going to be honest, I don't have full conviction in what I said, but we're going to see what happens. Donald, who you got as your gloomy boy of the week or of the day?
Y'all remember when Pierre Gasly was that next dude? He was supposed to be the guy.
Oh,
what happened to him, man?
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but since Austria, he has just one top 10 finish. And so he's my gloomy boy. I just think I just don't think they have that figured out. And between him and Ocon, like, bruh, you need to do something with this car. And they just haven't figured out what we have kind of figured out as fans, is that Pierre Gasly may not be the driver that we thought he was. And so those struggles continue. He's the gloomy boy of the day for me.
We hit him with they thought you was Kobe? That's crazy.
You remember that?
That is true. It is true. He used to be like, he was one of those like top ones. When he came out, it was like, oh, watch out for him. And just like,
yeah, he was like a season 2 cliffhanger. Like, yo, guess who's coming on the grid? Yes. Like, tune in next year.
Right. And then womp, womp. Oh, yeah, it was bad news. You know what? I hate to do this to him because I like him, but Yuki Tsunoda. I think I'm sorry. But both y'all's reactions was hilarious. I'm concerned about his mindset. Obviously, they bring in Liam Lawson. If they have that talk and Liam Lawson is actually auditioning for the Red Bull seat, Yuki's like, yo, why not me? Like, I've been performing in this like terrible car that y'all give me. Like, I'm trying my best. I'm doing okay. Like, why can't I? Why am I getting passed over? I think he's under quite a bit of pressure, and it doesn't feel like under the Red Bull setup, there's really anywhere for him to go. I think he's going to have to get away from that team. And it's tough because, as we talked about, seats are very limited. And even though that VCARB team is not great, I don't know what Audi's going to do next season. You know, like, I don't know if that's going to be a team to end up going to. So I really feel bad for Tsunoda. It feels like he's in a really weird spot right now. And I just don't know how sometimes like that uncertainty can also impact your performance on the track. I hope it doesn't, but I'm concerned a little bit given that like all the change in the team, the hype around Liam Lawson, and he's just kind of been forgotten. So I think he can either respond really well to that, but I also think we know his temperament. Sometimes he gets a little angry on the radio. Sometimes he drives a little hard, over aggressive, and we'll kind of see. But I do hope he bounces back and, you know, shows what he's got, you know, get on top of, make sure Liam Lawson doesn't beat you at all in qualifying or in any of the races. But I'm a little bit worried for Yuki Tsunoda. So we'll see.
I think the one thing about him though, right, is you mentioned next year and years after that, like, not only is he in a tough spot where he might need to leave, he doesn't have the game tape to like show somebody else to show that, hey, you should take me as your final driver. And so he kind of is stuck until he can put together at least a few good enough performances where some other team is like, yo, you could be that second guy. And he's going to be the second guy if he's moving. Cause I mean, for right now, he's moving up from teams if he switches, or he's moving off of the grid completely. And I think this might be it. I hate that he's your gloomy boy pick, because this seems like, hey, you might need to get something done here. Otherwise your future might not be as secure. Just again, as we talked about before, despite the fact that you have a contract, like your future may not be as secure as you think, because now the move is bringing in some of these younger drivers, and there's still some drivers out there that could replace him if he's not careful.
Well, my question is to be the number one on a 2 team, does that really make you a number 1 driver? Or does that make you third, a number 3 driver?
I mean, yeah, I would assume it makes you number 3 if you're looking at the team as like a team 1 and a junior team. Right. It would make you the third driver, but I still think within the team dynamic, there still is a 1-2, and that's what you really want to be. And it feels like a tough position, because what does he do? Where can he go from here? There aren't that many spots on the grid unless he just stays there, but staying there is also like his career is just plateauing there.
But is he even the number 1 driver?
That's what I'm saying. This is what I'm nervous about. I don't know. Like it sounds like they might have higher hopes for Lawson getting into that seat next to Max. If that's the case, if that's where they're at for these races, then they're focusing on Liam Lawson and getting him prepared to jump up to the main Red Bull team. Where does that leave Yuki? And Yuki's probably like, yo, that should be me. What does that do to your head while you're racing 200 miles per hour? I don't know. If
I'm Yuki, I'm going, I wasn't even number 2. I was number 2 on the 2 team behind Danny Ricciardo, and now Liam Lawson is coming in, and I'm still number 2 behind the rookie.
Yeah.
What are you racing for? Like,
that's also his thing, right? Like that's the mindset that he's bringing. Take it from me. You can be the star on the JV team. Everyone will still know your name. You may not be on varsity, but people will still know your name. It's a little weirder with him because of the fact that Red Bull doesn't necessarily promote people all the time up to the varsity, because there's just not spots, and that the varsity is so far up here and the JV is so far down here. We're talking Man City, and then Man City 2 was in like, you know, the National League and 5th division. Like that's what it feels like, but they're in the same grid. So Yuki it's a weird thing that he can still do well, but this weekend, if he can't outperform Liam, then that's when you kind of go, yo, Yuki, what are you doing, bro? Like, what's the deal?
Yeah. And that's what I'm scared about for him. Like, he's under a lot of pressure to perform against somebody that he's never had to go perform against. Well, I guess he has, because he did have that seat. Lawson did step in for Danny Rick, as you mentioned. when he broke his hand, but the situation was very different. Right now, like Liam Lawson is in that seat and he's either going to have that seat next year or he's getting bumped up to the main Red Bull team. So that's a lot. But the thing also is every single time there's an opening for a driver, you don't ever hear Yuki's name. You hear a lot of rookies. You hear some other names coming around in terms of drivers shuffling to one team or another on the grid, but you never hear Yuki's name pop up. And I feel like that's really sad. And it's got to be really frustrating for him to be like, yo, what do I need to do?
Is it also, we want to get into it, is it also probably like, you know, the European bias that's shown by a lot of these teams as well?
I want to discuss this further. I think we should in a future episode, certainly when we talk about Red Bull. Maybe when we do the Red Bull episode, we'll include VCARB because why not? I mean, the same team, same management, same company, right? We should do that. But I think that's a big part of it. I think Red Bull hasn't done a good enough job to find ways to communicate better with Yuki. I think the expectation is that he conform or adapt or whatever it is to the way that they do things. Instead, you know, he's known for being a little hot-headed and some of his radio messages are hilarious, but figure out how to communicate with him. He's in a high-stress job. Max was yelling at people in Hungary. Like when they were telling him like, yo, you got to stop sim racing and go to bed. Like it was they gave him that kind of guidance. And I don't know if that same kind of care or attention is being paid to how they communicate with Yuki. It just seems like he almost feels like he's difficult, quote unquote. And so they don't really want to deal with him. So every time a seat comes up, even within Red Bull, his name is never mentioned.
My other question is, we know Red Bull makes the car for Max. We know Mercedes made their car for Lewis. Who is VCARB making their car for? And does that match a Yuki driver? Or were they always saying, this is a Liam car, you're just driving it, and now that Liam's in it, can he perform? And if not, well, now our whole season is ruined anyway. They didn't really have one, but still, like they made the car. Did they make the car for Danny? And then Danny just still couldn't perform, so they never even bothered to look towards Yuki to make a car tailored for him. And they just said, Liam, you try it. Like, where's that dynamic too? And if that's gonna be something we have to look into to see how they go for next season.
Let's be real. Their car was made for Max too, because they want to see who could possibly drive a Max car well enough to drive with Max.
Yep.
That's the whole of the team.
Yeah.
And I'll say this also about Yuki. Like Yuki is the second most popular Red Bull driver on in the Red Bull camp when they go to Japan. And that's why he's around, because Japan loves their stars and he is one. Budding, whatever, you still have to put the word star next to him. And he has that star quality. But yeah, the idea here is they're trying to figure out who can drive, who can get promoted to the big team. And Yuki has to prove in a way, and it's, you know, fair or not, he has to prove that he can drive a Max car, because if he can't and someone else can, that's why he's getting, you know, part of the reason why he's getting passed over for some of these things. But it's weird because they still are just this middling, you know, minor league team that Red Bull only shows up and you know, talks about when they're lowering the hammer on somebody. We've seen that in years past too.
Yeah, I promise that in the future we will not spend 10 minutes on my gloomy boy of the day. I apologize. I didn't realize we all have very strong Yuki Tsunoda feelings because we do love the dude.
We love Yuki.
Like, we do. I love Yuki. I'm just scared. I'm scared for his kind of future in F1. I don't want to be too dramatic, but this is it feels like a turning point for him and where he goes from here. Anyway, we are very excited, as you may have heard, about COTA. This is going to be a very fun race, an intriguing race with a lot to look forward to. If you're a nerd like me and watch all free practice and everything, watch as much as you can. Whenever the cars are on and they're on the track, I try to be paying attention. So free practice, it's Friday at 1:25 p.m. Eastern. That's on ESPN2. Sprint qualifying is the same day. It's just 4 hours later, 5:25 p.m. Eastern time, also on ESPN2. The sprint race is Saturday, 1:55 p.m. That's on ESPN News. The Grand Prix qualifying is the same day, 4 hours later, again, 5:55 Eastern, also on ESPN News. And then the Grand Prix is Sunday, 1:30 p.m. ESPN Plus, ESPN3. They're also replaying it on ESPN2 for some reason at 10:30 p.m. I don't really understand that, but whatever. That is your lineup. That is what you need to watch if you're going to keep up with it. We will have a race review afterwards to talk about it all, see who was right, who was wrong, and maybe we'll all be in our feelings again about Yuki. Stay tuned to find out. Until then, for Ebony, Donald, I'm Andre, and
Vroom, vroom.